Hello?
Hi, welcome.
Oh, hey, this is Masha joining.
Oh, hey, Masha. How are you?
Good, how are you, Kristen?
It's so good to hear your voice, my
Yours
dear.
too. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Always, always. You're at the top of my list. How are you doing?
Good. Everything is good. I'm just at home this week. 850 temporarily closed last week. So, yeah, just making the best with our time like the rest of us who are stuck
Yes.
in this boat. So,
Well, it's going to be back open before you know it, and I'm so glad you're on this call. I see Kristen. Hi, Kristen. I'm so glad you're here too. Good to see you. You guys, I have to jump off really quickly because I had to give Zoom access to my camera, and it's saying I have to quit and then log back in. So I'm going to do that really quickly so you can see my face, okay?
Good deal. And then we're going to just mute everyone. I know it's going to take a few people to hop on, so I'll just hold the space until 5:05 here.
Okay, perfect. I'll be right back.
See you in a minute.
What's up, buddy?
Hey.
How you doing, guy?
Going to...
Yeah, go ahead and focus. I just was saying hello.
No worries. Look at all these early participants. San Francisco, awesome. While we wait for everyone to join, if you wouldn't mind hopping in the chat feature of Zoom, just sharing where you guys are coming from. I know we have people from all over the world, seeing some people from Australia, seeing some people from California, Denver, New York, expecting some of our friends from Costa Rica and Hawaii. Honolulu, great. There's Danielle from Costa Rica. Hey, Danielle.
Here we are in Mexico.
All right. Welcome. Up to
Thank
27.
you.
We're going to start here in just a few minutes.
Can you make no noise, please? I'm not cold.
Napa Valley, great. There's Aubrey from Australia, awesome. We're going to wait just a few more minutes. I know Zoom has recently done an update, and so I know some people today on former Zooms have had to update their software. So anticipating a few more to join us. So you'll be patient and just share where you're at. We got people from all over the globe coming in. So start here in just a few more minutes. You guys are everywhere I would like to be. Denver was 70 degrees yesterday and had snow on the forecast this afternoon. It hasn't snowed, but I see all the tropical places you guys are tuning in from. A little bit jealous. Not that you're able to utilize the beaches or anything, but still nice. Stacy from Costa Rica, welcome. Glad you were able to join.
Thank you for having this. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun. All right, Kristen, it is 5:05. I'll let you roll with it.
Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to our hospitality rebound strategy panel. A big thank you to Eric for organizing. Just personally, I sincerely appreciate your ingenuity in creating a forum for this type of discussion, for brainstorming, for support for all of us in such a challenging time. I'm always inspired when we talk, so it's great that you're opening this up to a larger audience. I want to thank Trevor and Greg as well. I'm going to get to their formal intros in just a minute, but I want to start by just acknowledging their strength and generosity that they're bringing to the table today. Everyone is really stretched. Everybody is really stressed at this time, and both of your kindness and ability to have the bandwidth to think about helping others right now is really amazing. It's a wonderful gift to all of us, so I just want to say thank you. Also, some important things about our intentions, today. I know as I've been chatting a lot with you, Eric, we've talked about our intention here is to be supportive and to be a resource. And the questions that we're going to be reviewing today have really been thoughtfully designed by the panel to give everyone here some tangible tactics and some ideas to consider. Of course, not everything will apply to everybody because there are going to be market variances, and it looks like we have people from all over the world, which is super exciting. But, we hope that there's going to be some useful information for everybody today. Also, just to be extra sensitive that we know that maybe not everybody is in the right place for action planning or maybe execution right now, that there's been so much to deal with that, people have maybe lost some of their jobs, or they've had to furlough employees. It's not always easy to be in a strategy session during a time like this. So we want to honor where each person and team is in their process, but also be a resource. So I think that, everybody is probably aware this call is really about action, but that means that will be action when you deem that it's appropriate. And we're here to be a support when you're ready. And then finally, I think we're just trying to look and see where there are opportunities in a challenge like this, and hopefully continued collaboration is where we can, make the best decisions possible. From a formatting perspective, we will be reviewing the questions together, going through some slides, and then please use the chat option for questions. And at the end, Erica shared that he will be making sure that everybody has contact information for follow-ups. Offline discussions are certainly welcome, and that maybe there'll be a continuation of these, Eric, if depending on what everybody's feedback is. I know we've talked about maybe you're wanting to expand this out to include more operations and so on. So let's get started with meeting the subject matter experts. We're covering leadership, revenue management, sales, and marketing today. So we'll start with you, Eric, our organizer. He's the co-founder and chief marketing officer of Social Capital Agency, or SoCap, that specifically serves boutique hotel owners, management groups, developers, and investors in tropical locations around the world. That sounds pretty amazing. As a thought leader and disruptor, he leads the team at SoCap to continuously explore how to elevate the customer experience online and off to elevate your brand's social capital. So Eric, again, thank you for bringing us all together. You know, your expertise and helping us align our tactics to support our brand promise is really a critical resource that we could all use right now. Next is Trevor, and he is the founder and president of Reb Matters, a revenue management consulting firm. He's also co-authored the world's first textbook on revenue management. He is a founding member of the Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association's Revenue Management Advisory Board and has been recognized by HSMAI as one of the hospitality industry's top 25 minds in sales and marketing. Woo-hoo. Pretty amazing. On a personal note, he holds a commercial pilot certificate and is an avid travel photographer. And in case you weren't already completely jealous, he has also visited over 60 countries. And full disclosure here, I've worked with Trevor and his team. I'm excited to talk with him and listen to his expertise today, not only from a tactical revenue management standpoint, but also from a leadership perspective. I know from firsthand experience just how much wisdom he has to share. He leads a rather large team, has everything from beginning level analysts to very senior leaders, you know, on his team. So I know he'll have insight not only in the revenue management portion, but also in leadership. So that's I'm excited to get to chat with you today.
Thanks, Kristen.
Yes, and then next we have Greg, and I'm really excited that Eric thought to add a leadership expert to this panel because having Greg on deck is amazing. You can have the best action plan in your market, but if you don't have a motivated and inspired team, then your chances of manifesting, you know, or executing them is certainly diminished. So including the internal customer in this whole discussion, I think is such a smart thing to do as we're dusting off our sales plans, our marketing plans, and our revenue management strategies. Why not make sure that we're also aligning all of our internal resources? I just think that's such a great thing to add. And sometimes in the sales and revenue world, we get so we have so much tunnel vision. This is really fantastic. So Greg is actually, he heads up Aden leadership and he coaches leaders to be their authentic self in all walks of life. So by giving leaders of teams the skills and strategies to align with their organizational and personal purpose, they are able to become more authentic leaders. So beyond leading, he'll provide the essential tools to be more productive and perform at levels never recognized before. He guides and coaches in ways that builds confidence and ability. So who doesn't need a little bit more confidence and ability at this time? This is, you know, we're being stretched, right? How many of us have been tested at this level before? It's a new world order, not a good time to be winging anything. So, you know, having Greg in this discussion, I think is amazing. And finally, I'm Kristen Jordanwood, hired gun. I'm a top line revenue strategist and consultant. Everything from direct sales, marketing, revenue management, specifically with boutique hotels and lifestyle hotels. My assignment today is just to ask our panel a few leading questions. So Eric, thanks for the really easy assignment. You guys have done all the heavy lifting here. So thank you for that. And I'll take a quick pause and ask you guys, did I miss anything or forget anything before we charge forward?
I think that covers our bases. We'll have this panel and then allow for some Q&A at the end of this.
Great. All right. Fantastic. Well, then let's get started on how to increase our direct bookings and promotion success.
Wonderful. So I'm going to start with just some very broad strokes, some gentle reminders at this time. The conversations we've started to have with people across the board have been just rotten. So that's a reminder that everyone is going through this across industries, whether you're simple or not. And so just acknowledging and calling the elephant out in the room that times are tough, whether that's internally amongst your employees or amongst your guests that are making cancellations, are adjusting their bookings, the like, that we're going to get out of this on the other side, and no need to kind of sugarcoat it. Let's just address the elephant in the room. In speaking with your employees, it's really essential to unify everyone's messaging. Some of the conversations I've had and in reaching out to various hotels and conversing, whether it be via LinkedIn or via Instagram, Facebook, email, sometimes there are some mixed messages that are happening. And so making sure that the core leadership team and everyone is aligned with messaging, regardless of what platform and outlet you're going to be pushing that to, is going to be crucial. Planning and preparation here is key. That idea of measure twice and cut once or send once is going to be really important to make sure that we're intentional with our messaging and recognizing people are in different headspaces. Some people have been hit more emotionally, and I've seen some people get short with people as a result just of not having the emotional intelligence to understand where they personally are at and the impact that this is having, not just personally, but professionally. So really being thoughtful about that before we hit send is a gentle reminder there. And making it personal at this time, you know, to be able to address you and to be able to make an authentic connection with you as our guest, with you as our employee, is going to be go a long way and remind people on the other side of this, those that were there for them, not to sell them. We're here to serve in hospitality in general, not to sell. And if we're here and through these times, keep that close to heart, we're going to come out stronger on the other side of this. Lastly, and I think most importantly, regardless of the communication, authenticity is going to win every time. However that looks for you, true to your brand, your message, authenticity takes a variety of forms, but being authentic to your brand through these times and not adjusting and trying to come up with, you know, short-term fire sales and messages is going to be something that is going to win. So I've got a few different ways that this can be applied in a few different outlets, but I know that you've been through tough times in 2008 and 2001 before. Kristen, do you have anything else that you'd like to remind, or from a marketing perspective, just share kind of your input about how people can be able to have success through these times?
Yeah, I think this is a great, you know, intro, and I love the authenticity. You sort of talked about, you know, getting back to basics with the brand and really understanding the brand. I think that's absolutely key before you, I think, you know, just think, oh, we have to put everything on sale. Really creating value is so important, you know, right now. And, you know, in the last big downturn, the private sales became, you know, sort of the big thing. And we gave Hotel Tonight and, you know, Groupon, which I love them. They're a great resource, but we really turned over all of our profitability. And I feel like, I hope we're smarter at this stage. I'd really love to see that we work on a book direct message, that we go to our CVBs, we reach out to hotel associations and really, with the most heartfelt, you know, sort of plea to say, we really cannot afford to turn over 20, 30, 40% of the revenue now to a third party. This needs to come directly to us. Our industry is really relying on this. So call your CVB and say, if you're thinking of doing any other message other than book direct, please think again. That's, I think, what, you know, what is so important right now. And then of course it needs to be personalized for what works in your market and your brand, but really thinking sort of bigger to say, how can we build this as a community message and all work together instead of letting the industry be sort of preyed upon in our more weak moments. I personally would love to use this opportunity just on a note to, you know, to take back some of the commission that we give to the OTA. So if anybody is interested in taking down Expedia with me, send me a note. I'm game, I'm your gal. So no, all kidding aside, I think this is a great start, but Yeah, let's get on the Book Direct bandwagon.
And I think there's some consumer education in that. Booking direct, I don't know how many consumers understand how much power and profit that gives to some of these OTAs, to all of them. And it varies, but I don't think that from a consumer standpoint, they quite understand the implication of that. And we do get, Small Business Friday, we do get the notion of support local. And I think there's a transition in education and messaging about how by booking direct, you're supporting local, and people understand and have some comprehension of what implications that has for small business, regardless of how many rooms and keys there are. So I think this is a great time to start adjusting that.
Indeed.
I'm going to go through at a high level, and in the Q&A, if we want to dive into any of these, absolutely, that can be something you have some questions to put in the chat feature. But some other ideas that we have entertained and are having conversations around in different platforms, email, social media, the like, through email, and how to have authentic messages for current and former bookings. I think that, again, really being able to address some of the strategies there and messages is going to be crucial. I've seen everything from, flexible times and dates to be able to book within the next either 12 or 18 months. But I think that there are certainly some mechanisms by which we can reevaluate how we're able to re-engage the current assets of people that have visited us before, and be able to let them know what's going on. Each region, each country is going to have different time zones. We're starting to hear, Philippines and others, or Australia is now just starting to get locked down. So it's going to vary kind of over the next few months, in spring into summer, how each region is adapting. Notifying former guests about that is going to be one thing that we can do by email in a great soft way. Now is also a great time to reevaluate that drip sequence when people are either booking through the website or otherwise. How are we providing information and adding an immense amount of value in that? I think really being able to dive in and look at the customer journey, not just leading up to the booking, but now that they've given you their trust, they're planning on coming, how many touch points are there? At what frequency? How are we adding a bunch of value, not just with activities, but really being able to customize their trip, really being able to connect with them and add that to our CRM before they ever walk in the doors. And I think that that's a wonderful way to be able to just show in each of those micro moments how thoughtful we are and how we're curating that experience for the guest, even off-site. Lastly, I think, there's a lot of other ways to be able to connect and not devalue your brand beyond, these promotions of 4th or 5th night free. And I've got some examples later on of what I'm seeing on social media thus far, but I think there's some great ways to be able to re-engage our audience through emails beyond just the promotions. And so we can dive into that a little bit further.
Can I just ask you a quick question before, just because this is so top of mind, and Trevor, maybe you can jump in here too. Like you said, different markets are going through something different, but in your opinion, is it the right time to be sending out rate offers right now to try to get people to travel?
If you're in mainland China, yes. Otherwise, I would probably wait on that at this point. That's not the messaging to be sending out right now, in my opinion.
I don't believe so. I think there's a lot of other ways to be able to connect personally with your audience. Social media or by email, one of the things that we have entertained is how do you really be able to show that hospitality nature, that caring of not just your guests, but your employees, whether that is the message out into the world now is, hey, look at our executive chef. Look at, what cool, unique experiences and food that he's brought to the table, literally, for our guests. What about the people that have worked their way up from housekeeping and now are in a director or a manager role? How has the opportunity in working with us changed their perception of the industry and change their life, quite frankly. That was a really cool time to be able to connect with our guests and with our prospective guests in that capacity, far more than offering them all sorts of deals and promos. There will be a time for that, but it's not quite right now. I think being able to add value, connect personally is going to be important in the interim. And as the travel restrictions open up, then when we can explore, and now we can strategize what that looks like, but then we can really start showing face as to what that looks like, softly and sensitively.
So
to that, if I could, Christian, just to dovetail to what Eric is saying here. So I'm speaking to all of you from my home office in Denver, and I'm thrilled to understand that we have such a global audience here. It's wonderful. I am looking out my window and it's snowing like crazy. So I'm in the dreaming phase, and I'm looking at the slide here. I just came back from French Polynesia here not too long ago, and this is very reminiscent of that trip, and I'm itching to go on my next trip. So I'm in the dreaming, early planning, sort of thinking phase. And I think if we think about our messaging, whether it be social media or otherwise, that's a great way to engage. We have one client in St. Lucia, for example, that is taking advantage of their spa aesthetics, if you will, and are doing a yoga class every morning, and they're getting a tremendous amount of social media following for that. And I have a feeling that's going to pay dividends in the future as well.
Mm-hmm. So if I can just say, okay, so I'm a general manager. I'm going to play that role right now, and I am keeping my hotel open. I am maybe running 10% occupancy, right? If I'm lucky, I'm a city hotel right now. I need to get a message out of some kind, right? Maybe, and yes, I do have rock bottom rates available, maybe, probably. So is it okay to say we're open? Is it appropriate to say, hey, we're open? Is that okay? Maybe give me some direction here on what you think is appropriate.
Yeah, I think whether it's social media or email here, the message is that last bullet point of creating comfort for guests. I think saying you're open and then really reinforcing people's nerves with your best practices. What are you doing to clean the lobbies and the common areas every hour? What type of commercial products are you using that are green and environmentally friendly and the like? And how are you asking the staff and the guests to be able to maintain the best practices for social distancing and the like? I think just going above and beyond, whether that's through video, whether that's through photos, whether that's your operations or your house cleaning staff, showing that video, creating transparency there, I think is going to be key to settle the nerves of people if they're in the central class and have to do some business travel and come and stay with you.
Fantastic. And then just because I know you're about to talk about social media, I'm really interested. I think a lot of hotels have decent, social media. They have maybe a decent number of followers, like basic, engagement, and maybe they get some bookings. This is kind of our channel right now. We can't really abuse our email databases too much, or we're going to get some unsubscribes, right? So this is our primary means right now if we have the bandwidth to be staying connected and trying to be relevant, with our customers. So I'm really interested to know what you would recommend, that I do to create in this time period, what would be an appropriate way for me to improve this kind of lifeline, I think, that we have right now with understanding what is going to resonate with our customers.
Yeah, I love Trevor's idea of being able to, whether it's Facebook Live or Instagram TV or YouTube, you can be able to go live, and whether it's the yoga classes or other things of that nature, each property is going to have a different kind of strategy you can explore to be able to engage, but creating some consistency and routine there could be interesting. Again, highlighting, making it personal with stories of staff is a great way, whether they're at home and are just able to tell that story, or they can actually come in to the hotel and the property and shoot that video, tell that story, I think is a great way. Another way that I am seeing just from the conversations I've had with hotels and reaching out is those that are engaging, those that are at home on their personal desktops, not with the firewalls that are imposed kind of on site. There's a proliferation of content, but I'm seeing less engagement than ever. And I don't know if it's because people are troubleshooting and they're trying to work through their other messaging and their other initiatives and operations. But I reached out to a handful of hotels last week as well as this. And 2 of them out of like 10 got back to me. And out of 6 or 8 emails I sent out, 1 got back to me about what they were doing. And so what's interesting is while all these people are online, the engagement's seemingly at an all-time low. And I think it should be more prompt, more quickly, more timely. And there are ways through social media to be asking people to post, their favorite photo of their trips, to re-engage the audience that has been there, their best memories and what are they excited about, and start to crowdsource some content. So that's one of my strategies there is how can we fill the feeds with positive intentions and good messages. And there's some really interesting campaign strategies that I've seen just outside of hotels where people are asking their friends to post, photos of them on a beach or traveling, so that they're not getting bombarded with negative news. I think there's ways that the industry here can be able to tap into that and engage their former audience. And then those that are visiting, I think retargeting with intention and value. If we're seeing, I'm sure everyone slashed their Google ads and Facebook budgets, but I think retargeting those that are visiting your site, those that are engaging with you, those that are interested. We're starting to see more and more flights and interest for flights back to China, and people are still looking at travel, like Trevor just mentioned. We're getting cabin fever a few weeks in now, and so how do you thoughtfully re-engage those people and create that comfort, reassure them, is a way to be able to utilize social media right now.
Great. Yeah, I would think that if there are, sort of any funds and this is your marketing, channel, I would think that, ads would be, I'm on my social media now way more than I was before. And I'm seeing a ton of, sponsored ads, I think much more, than before. So I think it just depends. Is it too early for a contest? Is it too early for giveaways of that type? Is that something that should be on deck maybe a month from now? What do you think?
It's not promotional, and it's a way to engage and create context and add value. I think that's the important thing here. I think there could be ways for like the status where Trevor is in, where we can create live streaming and allow people to dream and envision what it's like there. We can be able to set up live videos, from the rooftop or from the beaches or whatever the spectacular views that we have, looking through the amazing penthouse suites. Now's the time to be able to, I think, engage people in that capacity. And that could be a really interesting way to be able to create some crowdsourced content in that regard and competitions through that avenue.
Great.
We're starting to tap into other people's time here. So a few just other notes that I'll cruise through and we can come back in the Q&A section, but very generic kind of COVID responses that I'm seeing right now online. And I have been impressed by a few that really stood out to me, where the CEO or the president of the organization had his signature on it, had it personally written. It didn't feel like it was coming from a government agency. It really felt that I was able to get a tone of how this is impacting you and your organization. And I saw a lady that was not able to go back to Tulum from LA, and just, I could really feel how that was able to have a direct impact on her on the website. And I'm compelled to now go back and, re-explore her property after this, because I got to get a sense of just how much they care in that way. I think there's a great way through authentic messaging to be able to share that. I think, again, now is a great time to evaluate the customer journey and how are we changing what we're presenting in an authentic manner to be able to book direct and limit the number of clicks to book and add value, whether that's know before you go docs, information about your community, about the activities, about local food and music. I think there's some great ways right now to be able to look at when people are going to be hungry and searching for their next destination, to really guide them on what does the experience of getting down there look like, and how is it seamless for you, not just when you get down there, but even beforehand. We're going to be so proactive and intentional about the customer journey, even online. Wait till you get down here. You'll be able to just see our attention to detail. And then we can circle back if we have questions. Perhaps that's another one to bring some sales and event people to entertain. How are we messaging, our agency partners, our travel agents, and the like. But overall, you asked about social media, high level. I think just to summarize, connect personally, engage. Look at how you can crowdsource content from guests, how you can retarget and create some value with intention when you are seeing those that are interested in the property. Create comfort, create that vision, create an understanding of what that experience is like, and make it authentic. Don't have it be canned or overly corporate. And most importantly, this is travel. We're supposed to be having fun, get creative, have fun. Remember, we all want to have experiences and provide those for our guests. So I think there's a little permission now to do something outside of your brand standards you otherwise might not have done. Push the limits a little bit in how you engage with your customers and get creative with it. Right now, these are some of the things that we're seeing. Again, that I mentioned as far as, discounts, some flash sales, how others are handling it. I think what I've been most attractive to is just the notion of how do you change the date and book when you're ready. Book, vacay when it's okay was a great hashtag here. So,
oh, that's a great one.
Doing it differently, make sure it's on brand, on point, but authentic and true to yourself.
That's great.
All right, I think I'm up. This is Trevor here.
Yes, you are, Trevor.
Yeah. So our clients look to us to have a crystal ball, and you guys have a special treat here. I actually have my crystal ball here.
Oh my goodness, look at you.
That's the secret tool for revenue management that we use. So,
amazing.
Not here first. But in all seriousness, our clients have been asking for support and understanding what the heck's going to happen, and what should we expect. And that's a tough question to answer. But I was also curious just for the health of our own organization, because of course our success is tied to our client success as well. So I thought it might be really helpful to understand prior shocks that have happened to the tourism industry globally. And although my comments are going to be somewhat US centric, just that's where the vast majority of our clients happen to be. I think it would be instructional to take a look at some other areas as well. So it started by taking a look at what happened in mainland China in 2013 during the Sars outbreak. And as you can see, and I don't know if we can, I don't have a pointer, but you can definitely see the blue line. The occupancy dropped precipitously starting in March of 2003 and hit bottom in May of 2003, and then rebounded very, very quickly. In fact, this is what I would call a V-shaped recovery. So if you take a look at some of their peak months of the year, they have seasonal cycles there just like we may have in our local markets. But if you take a look at those peak months of October, you can certainly see that there was a pretty strong recovery in 2013. So that's 5 months after the low point. And then as you can see, a year from now, that following October was back to October 2002 levels. So there was a fairly quick recovery. And I'm going to term this a V-shaped recovery. So if you would mind go to the next slide for me, Eric. I think you're the one driving. So I thought, okay, well, in the US, what happened in the US? So we have a couple of events that we can look at more recently. So one was the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks, which is shown in blue on this chart. And then we also have the financial crisis, which began in September 2008. So if we take a look at those two points in time on the charts on the left-hand side, you can see the significant negative impact on RevPAR during the September 11th terrorist attacks. And then a fairly rapid recovery. If you look at the blue line, the blue bars going up to 4 months after on the far right-hand side, we're actually able to recover. So that would also be a V-shaped recovery, whereas the financial crisis of 2008 was more of a U-shape. We started easing into it during the time of the event, and then there was a drop in RevPAR the following month. 2 months afterwards, there was a Lehman Brothers hangover, if you will, and that group falling apart. So that had a knock-on effect. And then we saw some recovery and some economic stimulus programs put into place. And again, ironically, 4 months after the event itself, we saw some sort of a recovery. So if you wouldn't mind flipping to the next one for me, Eric. And this one here was what CRBE is projecting. So if you take a look at what's happening right now, in the second quarter, 60% of the negative change that we're going to be experiencing in 2020 is going to be in the second quarter, which definitely means that we're going to start to see some recovery. We have to, by definition, mathematically, see some recovery coming back in the summer months. And then certainly as we get into the fall, there's some additional recovery potential there for us. And then as you can see in 2021, pretty significant year-on-year change. Now the year-on-year change is a little bit deceptive when you look at this chart. It looks like we're going down 36% in 2020 overall in RevPAR, and we're going to see a rebound of 38.3%. So if you just look at these charts, you could say, oh, we're back to normal in 2021. But the reality is if you do the math on that, it's about 87% recovery in 2021. And then if you look at the 13.4% on that 87%, that gets us back to where we were in 2019 by 2022. So, you know, is it a V-shaped recovery? Yes, in the short term. I think we're going to start to see some demand return somewhere between Memorial Day and the 4th of July timeframe is what our current projections are. Is it going to be a longer road to hoe to get back to RevPAR levels that we experienced this last year in 2019? Yes. Looks like it might be a 2.5 year projection for us to get back to the normal range. So that's going to cause a lot of changes. So if you want to go to the next one here for me, Eric. So, you know, how do we know if we've hit the bottom? Now, my personal projections are for the US market that we're going to be seeing the most severe impacts over the next 2 weeks. So right now we're at 25% occupancy in the industry right now. This last week, according to Smith Travel Research, I have a tendency to think that that's going to bottom out somewhere between the mid to low teens. And then we're going to start to see some recovery, you know, as I mentioned, towards the Memorial Day timeframe, but it should happen a little bit sooner than that, all being well. So how do we know what's going on? Well, there's some lagging indicators and there's some leading indicators. So some of the lagging indicators that we'd be looking for would be jobless claims. So if we're looking at those 4-week moving averages, that's a fairly current indicator of what's happening if we start to see those change. Durable goods, 2 to 3 month trends. So that's a lagging indicator, and that's indicating corporate reinvestment with durable good purchases. Consumer confidence in our industry is probably one of the strongest indicators for us. And if we're looking at indexes at 60% or higher, that is when we start to see some buoyancy and some return to leisure and corporate business coming back into our respective markets. So that's sort of a good indicator there as well. Existing home sales, again, 2 to 3 month trends, so that's going to be lagging. Retail sales, same thing. Interest rates, who knows? There's so much quantitative easing and other incentives and different things going on. I don't know that interest rates would be really a reliable indicator for us at this point. But we are very fortunate in our business that we have something called booking pace. So we can actually just take a look at what's going on from a cancellation perspective and new bookings perspective. And I think right now we're in a net negative booking environment for most properties. And we, like I said, expect to see that over the next 2 weeks. I think starting in 3 weeks, it might be at 0, maybe net positive slightly, and then we'll start to climb out of it from there. When the recovery begins, I suspect what we're going to see is a little bit different from other recoveries. In the past, we've seen leisure return first, corporate travel second, and groups third. I think what we're going to see here is a little bit different, where we've had some groups actually, instead of canceling completely, have been pushing back their meetings to later this year. So that's going to artificially inflate the group rebound numbers, if you will, as the analysts start reporting performance for the industry. I also think we're going to start to see some return of corporate travel and small meetings in the urban markets, and I think again leisure is going to start to be the leading market segment that's going to impact us in the rural and in the by definition in the resort markets. So that's how I would envision the climb out, if you will, on the back end of this.
So leisure coming last, leisure coming in dead last is what you're saying, right?
Sorry, Christina. Yeah, what I meant to say there is that in the urban markets, leisure will be last. I think there's still going to be some sensitivity around people going into areas with high population density. I think drive market properties, rural properties, and resorts in particular will see leisure recover first. Whereas if you're in an urban setting, a downtown major center, you're probably gonna see some corporate travel and small meetings recover before you'll see your leisure bookings come back again. So as you think about pricing and other things, that'll be important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So keep that in mind. And Eric, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide here for me, and that kind of dovetails in nicely to what, as a revenue manager, what you should be thinking about now. And I think the first rule that I have here is focus on what you can control. There's a ton of stuff going on around us that we just can't control. So be mindful and look after yourself personally, make sure that you are healthy. So definitely focus on the things that are important to you individually. But as you start to put your mind around work, and maybe you have a little bit of downtime and you're thinking about what you can do to add value in your role for your property during this downtime, is look at some of the things that we have listed here. So rate plans, just make sure, if you got old rate plans in the system, get them cleaned up. Just make sure that they're not in your way, get some clarity around it. Start thinking from a ability also to think about, what is loaded and what's not loaded. Look at your production figures and say, hey, do we have an issue with a consortia account or a particular corporate account based on the production so far this year? And then maybe you have a loading issue, so it's a good time to do an audit around that. Pricing would be another area of focus. And so think about, from a consumer perspective, some of the changing attitudes. Would a consumer right out of the box be willing to pay for a non-refundable advance purchase, full prepayment rate plan? In some markets, probably not. I think they're going to be a little more sensitive to that. Flexibility is going to be absolutely key. Also, it'd be important to take a look at some of the pricing actions that your competitors have. If there's any promotions or things that your competitors are offering, you're going to want to know what that is, so make sure that you're correctly positioned against them. And think about, in terms of adding value to your pricing through packaging and other value adds versus just deep discounting, because a race to the bottom is what's happened in past crises, and that's why it's taken a little bit of time to recover. Inventory is another good one too. So if you think, coming back to our earlier comment about groups moving towards the latter part of the year, making sure that you've got appropriate inventory allocations for those groups, make sure you've got stay controls in place that are appropriate. Think about the types of units that are going to be more in demand than otherwise. Perhaps if you're a resort property that has some outlying unit types, maybe cabins or water bungalows or something like that. Those may be more popular than the units that are in the resort core itself. So just think that through as well, and think about your price granularity or price steps between unit types. Content, if you think about not only making sure that you have fresh photography and your descriptive content's accurate, but start thinking about the shift in mindset that we're likely to face with new travelers coming on the back end of this thing. And that's going to be that they're going to be looking for three things in my mind. So one is going to be cleanliness, and Eric had already alluded to that fact. The second is going to be safety. And the third in my mind is going to be flexibility. So if you think about those three elements, how do you write your content? How do you think about rate plans? How do you think about descriptive content that speaks to that? As airline travelers, all of us are probably going to learn much more about aircraft filtration systems, for example, than we've ever thought about, because that's going to be important to us. You know, when we get on the airplane, are we going to be breathing dirty air from the guy who's coughing up in seat 3A? So we're going to learn a lot about filtration systems and cleanliness and airflow and everything else from the airlines. So think about what is going to be important to your guests as they stay at your property. Channel management. Kristen, I heard you clearly about the desire for Book Direct and focusing on profitability. This is a great time for us to really know what our cost of distribution is by channel and understand what the profit contribution is by channel. Is there a place for OTAs? My opinion, absolutely. Is there a place for Book Direct and opportunities maybe that weren't there before collectively through CVBs and other organizations to focus on a Book Direct message? Yes, absolutely. But understanding as a baseline from a revenue management perspective, what your profit contributions are would be a good starting point there. And if you got some downtime, think about all the systems that are available to you. Property management systems, central reservation systems, point of sale systems, sales and catering systems, and just go through it and see if there's some data there that you can look at to help you identify some trends. Maybe there's some opportunities there or market segments that you hadn't identified before, or understand profitability by market segment. You know, you've got a little bit of downtime to think through what that could look like on the back end of this to really make sure that when you are going out with your marketing messaging, that you're catering to a market segment that's going to be contributing to your bottom line more so than just top line. And I think my final point here is action planning. So what a great opportunity for you to put your heads together with sales, marketing, team members, e-commerce associates, and just collectively make sure you're all pulling in the same direction and that you've got clear messaging and you've got clear offers at the correct price and through the correct channels. So if you're thinking about all those things in a cohesive manner, you're going to emerge from this much more rapidly than your competitors.
Trevor, I love that idea of the three types of content people are going to be looking for. I think that's really going to be important as people are researching and doing their due diligence of where they want to go. We got to recognize that the implications and the change in consumer behaviors can be far larger than just how often are we going out to eat at restaurants and, you know, how often are we cooking at home. People are now shopping online. They're, you know, placing their orders for groceries online for either delivery or pickup. We're going to have a much more digitally savvy, tech savvy customer that needs to have that customer experience be facilitated now through the hospitality industry. You know, we're used to Amazon, and you also might be interested in these other products. I'd love to see more and more hotels look at, you know, showing inventory on either side of the price point that they're interested in. And I see so few that take that opportunity to either upsell or show on either side of kind of what the guest's price point is, what else is available. What's a room with a better view of the beach that they could have access to right now. So I think really looking at the content and how we're presenting that to a more digitally savvy customer is going to be key. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I also think, that, Kristen, I think you may have mentioned it earlier, that here's going to be this potential for pent-up demand, specifically coming into the summer travel months. I have a friend of mine who is very actively engaged in mainland China, and she's starting to see what she has termed revenge travel, which is kind of a funny term, but it's really revenge against the virus for holding me back. I want to be able to get out in the world and experience it.
I feel the same way. I'm like, I need to travel constantly now. It's so true.
And so I think, yeah, are there going to be deals, and are there going to be things that people are going to be looking for? Yeah, but also I think there's some other messages here beyond a low price or a deal that guests are going to be looking for. It's going to be about the experience. How can this travel experience contribute to my memories as a human being on this earth? Those types of things. And that's maybe sounds a little ephemeral, but let's sort of think that through and just not focus on the price.
Yeah, I love this. I think you really made me think about something, and this is a comment for my direct sales people that are listening, and marketing people. Right now, I think it's really important not to make assumptions about what our customers, particularly our group customers, maybe even our travel agencies. Now is really, I think, the time to get on the phone and to ask questions. And I think direct salespeople are maybe used to taking group leads. Maybe they won't necessarily have the right questions on hand. I think this is where sales and marketing can work together. Marketing people tend to have sort of bigger, broader, questions that they can ask, but to really reach out to as many customers as possible and ask those important, bigger picture questions about what is happening. How is your travel policy changing? What are your groups going to look like outside of just, okay, we pushed this back 6 months. What are the new protocols that are being put in place in your organizations for travel, for about the distance that we're supposed to be sitting? Like, can the meeting space that I put this group in now work, because now we need more space, at the table for people? None of us know the answer, but I think being able to reach out and really understand what that looks like, not assuming that we know, or certainly in conversations that I've had, that because in our world, our sky has fallen, that can then sort of taint our potential messaging because of the emotional state that we're in. But for instance, I'll give you an example. There's a hotel that I work with in West Hollywood, and they're actually quite busy. The entertainment industry is doing well. And so, there's business that's being booked for the future, right now. So just being very careful that we don't just jump out with discounts and all of these giveaways, but to truly understand what your most important customers, what their travel patterns look like. And like I said, having your marketing team sit down with your direct sales team to say, here are the new questions, that you need to ask. And of course, I think probably a lot of people are thinking, well, wouldn't that be great, Kristen? But I had to furlough my, my sales team. I don't have that right now. So, what can I do? Or maybe I only have one salesperson because, and they're just, answering incoming leads. I don't have the bandwidth for this sort of bigger outreach that I need to really inform the kind of pricing decisions and forecasting decisions that I need. So in an instance like that, I would, recommend reaching out to Helms Briscoe partners or, HPN partners, the sort of third party meeting planners that maybe you can sort of partner with to try to get this information, understand this information, so that you're not making decisions in complete darkness or on your own assumptions without any kind of client validation. Am I making sense? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's super important, you know, right now. And just to piggyback on that whole direct sales, you know, component of it, if I'm a sales leader, if I'm a general manager, I have to be asking myself, what kind of sales training do I need to provide that's going to be different than what I've done in the past? As salespeople, we're used to using our, you know, our face-to-face charisma, right, to build relationships. What does that look like? Do I need video? Do I need training on how to sell via a channel like Zoom? Just sort of assuming that everybody can naturally adapt, I think is also, you know, kind of dangerous. So, you know, looking at what those potential tools are for sales, I think is super, super important right now. Okay, so we are up to the next slide here. So let's move into our discussion, you know, about leadership. This is great. Greg, are you?
Yeah, ready.
Awesome. Here we are.
Yeah, go back to that first slide if you don't mind. Yeah, there you go. One thing that was missed in the opening, at least from my vantage point, is I have 30 years in the hospitality industry, 8 years with Marriott, 16 and a half with IHG, on property, sales, bellman, dishwasher, busboy, all the way up, 5 years in financial services. It's just the last 5.5 years that I've decided to jump out of a big job in the hospitality arena and create what I believe is the one of the more fun and more important conversations in any industry is leadership. And as we've already kind of pointed out, it's impossible to lead a hotel. It's impossible to lead a small or large organization if you don't have great leadership. So I just wanted to bring context to why I'm sitting here. It's not just because I'm in leadership, but I have a significant amount of experience in the space that we're joyful enough to gather around today. But I would also want to, Trevor, I literally wrote down experience, arrow, memories. And you started to say that might be a little odd, but I would tell you in my experiences that some of us want to travel, some of us need to travel. Everyone on this Zoom call has had both of those needs to stay at a hotel. And ultimately it is about the experience. And especially with family travel, incentive trips, resorts specifically, the only thing that we remember is the memory that was created. And I believe that is very paramount right now for all of us to recognize in what memories are we creating right now as a leader and as men and women and as human beings in this industry where, yes, we're getting hammered. And we could talk about the numbers and what's going to happen all day. But what I believe we should be talking about and be real about is leadership. And we're all leaders. And I would like for anybody on the chat room to send me a note and tell me you're not a leader, because I will talk with you offline and really ask you, well, you have to be a leader because you at least lead yourself in perhaps a small team. It's not about having 100 or 1,000 followers, but this slide here is just a little reminder to get a sense of responsibility and the honor and the privilege of being a leader, and it starts with you. And the thing around you is a heart, because without a heart, it's impossible to be a true leader, in my opinion. You can be emotionally intelligent, you can be overly intelligent, you can also be a narcissist and an egomaniac, but my point is, it starts with who you decide to be. And the size of your heart perhaps is going to be a connection for others, but for me, it's you get to choose if you're going to be kind and considerate, or you're going to be short and disciplined. You're going to have more discipline than love. But you can see just from the arrows that as you decide who you want to be, when you serve and guide and lead, then you allow those other people around you to have an impact and influence and inspiration around those others. And now let's just pretend that you as a general manager, to Kristen's point earlier, if he or she shows up and he's or she's a you-know-what, not a very kind person that day, you know then his or her lack of guidance in serving and leadership is going to have a negative impact on a significant amount of people. It just does. Now take that you and pretend it's you as a mom, you as a dad, you as a partner. And again, think about that. How you decide you want to show up has a significant influence on everyone around you. I just wanted to put that in perspective and put it into a graph. In these times, and I coach a variety of companies and a variety of industries, and yes, they're all reeling and they're all staying home. And Trevor and Eric both alluded to downtime, and I would tell you that there's nothing more to talk about than that beautiful opportunity of downtime. Let's not kid ourselves. Not everybody is as busy as we used to be. So what are you doing to become a better leader? And for me, it's to be curious, to engage, ask more questions, listen. And I like to say, listen, and with your eyes too. That's being present. And today, moms, dads with kids especially, when's the last time you've actually sat on the floor and looked your kids in the eye and asked, how can I be a better dad today? How can I be a better mom today? Now take that back to the hotel. Gather everybody in a ballroom because you know it's empty. And the general manager, he or she, has the courage to ask, how can I be a better leader today? What should we be doing? This isn't the time for a leader to act like he or she knows everything. This is in fact the best time for leaders to show up more vulnerable and real and ask for help. And I don't mean to show up with no clue or no plan. My ask is show up and be curious and interested in getting the information from your followers. Because without the followers, you have no leadership in a hotel. And I believe everyone on this understands that. Be confident. Be confident with who you are and who you're being, but allow others to give you feedback by asking for it. Stephen Covey told us a long time ago that leaders choose to be leaders. Now is a really good time to choose to be a leader that people want to follow. People are delicate right now. They're uncertain. There's a lot of pain going on, and you can't solve all of their pain as a leader. You can, though, make them feel better by asking them questions you've never asked them before. Lean in and really show that you care about them. Leadership, according to Tom Peters, is about producing others. And I know this is going to shock some of you, especially what I just said, but it's not about you. It's about your followers. And as I like to say, look behind you and make sure that they're actually following you, especially in these times. And if someone's not following you, take a time out, ask someone else to lead temporarily, go back there and find out why Steve or why Sue are not following. Find out what's going on. And I guarantee you it's something that you can affect if you want to. But if you just assume they're following you, especially in these times, I wish you the very best. People ask me what principles and I focus on, and there's 5. It's integrity, and that is I am my word, period. And then accountability, responsible for all your thoughts, your words, and your actions. You can't be 80% accountable. It doesn't work. And courage, not eliminating fear, but being courageous with your word, being courageous and curious to have those tough conversations. And again, especially now, especially when people are hiding, and leaders, you can't hide. You need to go find people and ask them how you can serve them. Passion is number 4. Passion about a vision. And right now, your vision could be very, very short term, as Trevor alluded to. What are you going to do in April? That's our vision. What are you going to do in May, June, and July to get some of the occupancy back up? How are you going to be creative? But we have to have, as leaders, passion. And then the 5th one is humility. And humility to me is having empathy or looking through the eyes of someone else to find out where they're coming from. And again, that helps you remember it's not about you. And courage and humility are the ones that leaders struggle with the most, as you can imagine. The more confident, if you will, boisterous, arrogant leaders, they have a real hard time raising their hand, asking for help. And if you know anything about Brené Brown, she will tell you that the most courageous and vulnerable people turn out to be the most powerful leaders. And if you don't know Brené Brown, I recommend you watch some of her YouTubes. Fantastic lady, and she was here in Denver. She's been here a few times, and if you have a chance to see her wherever you are in the world, in fact, she was just on 60 Minutes earlier in the week. So what can we do now to be creative? And again, Eric and Trevor alluded to some things, and as did Kristen rather. But right now is the time to have fun, loosen up, and recognize that everyone around us isn't in a place that they're comfortable with. And again, if you want to be a parent in this conversation, or you want to be a general manager or director of marketing, director of sales, I don't care. But just have fun and be real. Now is not the time to show up as if you know everything and be buttoned up. And I'm not saying show up in sweats and a hoodie. I'm just saying relax, have fun. And again, if you go back to the example of being parents, right now you've got to be creative because they're not in school. And for the employees that are showing up and are working with you, or they're just in Zoom and FaceTime meetings, relax and enjoy and ask them questions. Have them bring ideas to you, and then be more thankful and authentic with your responses than you ever have. There's never been a better time. And I don't care whether it's 9/11 or 2008 and 9, but right now this is very unique. So you need to be creative and unique in the way you show up and you lead others. Listen to language around a powerful leader who is talking about what they believe that comes from their heart, or better yet, they know. I've written blogs and I've spoken on it lots of times around listen for I think. You want to follow someone that starts with I think? No, you want to follow someone that starts with I believe. I believe I know what's going on and I believe what's true, and I'm going to share it with you. Listen for that in all the conversations you're having, and even the people that you admire on TV, and some of the more intelligent politicians even start out with that, but it's weak. Just share what it is that you know is true. There was some conversation around how are we distancing ourselves, or how are we using this time to bring our culture even closer together? And what can we do there to kind of redefine our message? And a lot of it's already been said, but get creative with these kind of opportunities. Get people to lean in and sign up and bring ideas as to what it is they want to learn, and then research the answers and deliver them. Or better yet, in my opinion, I like to recommend to leaders to have them self-lead, have them self-coach, have them get together and come up with great ideas, and you facilitate the conversation. Let people really show up at this time. This is Viktor Frankl. If you haven't read any of his stuff, or you don't know who he is, he's probably one of the more famous philosophers of our time, and even before our time. But now is a time where a lot of people are having interesting reactions to things, and they're getting triggered. And what I ask you to do is, if you become triggered by something you're hearing, something you're seeing, something your spouse is saying, because now you're spending a lot more time with your partner in the same home, the space seems to get smaller, all of that. What he's saying here is, when you get stimulated or when you get triggered, and the space between the response and when you're triggered is the freedom for you to choose. Choose how you're going to respond. And as soft as this may think, it's the most powerful thing I can tell you relative to this topic. That in your response, if there is even one, is where growth and happiness lies. And if you think about the real conversations you've had leading up to today, the ones you'll have next week, all I ask is for, if you do get stimulated or you get triggered, before you say something, well before you're going to regret it, but something you know isn't going to serve the Zoom call or the phone call or the conversation with your spouse or your kids, just take a breath. Just pause and ask yourself, do I really need to be heard right now? Or do I really need to serve the people that I say I love? And yeah, love. Your partner, your spouse, your kids, your followers. And if you don't need to say it, ladies and gentlemen, leave it out. That's the most powerful leader I can describe. The ones that listen, ask more questions, and say less. Watch for the leaders in your life that show up that way. Next slide, if you wouldn't mind. And all of this is tied to results. All of this is tied to starting with alignment, and that's 12 o'clock. Start with clear priorities. And again, if you have a vision or a plan for April and then another one for May, so on and so forth, so be it. But we need to start up here where at 12 o'clock in alignment. Then you move down here at 3 and you start to create the action plans, and then down here at 6 o'clock is finish. Most of us are really good at going from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock and then right back up because we're busy. We have so much to do. But what we forget to do is this little guy over here, acknowledge. And that's the accountability. And if you think about it, especially right now with all the plans and during the downtime you have, after you put one into place and you understand what's going on, if you don't acknowledge and you just go back to start over again, you're not going to grow. What did you learn? And then how do you share it amongst the teams or other hotels that you own or other hotels that you manage? So the cycle of performance is a whole another topic that I lead on, but it again starts with you, starts with who you're being, starts with your teams, it starts with your communication. But this is one of the things I really enjoy sharing with my customers, because it's the only way we can not only get things done by starting with alignment, but have action plans that everybody's agreed to. Finish, it's not there, but it really there is finish is integrity. You finish when you said you were going to. And you can imagine all the hotels or companies or anything you're familiar with is if someone's behind, that means someone else after them is behind. That's why integrity is such a key principle. So that's what I wanted to share today. It's a broad topic, but I'm trying to lean into the leadership relative to hospitality space, one that I know and love very well. And I'll get it back to you, Kristen, if there's other questions you want to
Yes, just one question for you, if I could. Thank you so much for your heartfelt, comments. I can really feel your leadership style just in the way that you speak, and it's such a wonderful thing to receive right now. So thank you, for that. I think we can all use, more of that. I want to ask you sort of a C-level question, because I know you work at various, levels of hotels, but I just sort of thinking about organizations, we have incentive plans that are set up for sort of business as usual, how it used to be. And looking at the bigger picture, how are we rewarding both financial and non-financial incentives for the behaviors that we are looking for? And in a time like this where we really need to make maybe some big changes as to what kind of behavior will help us move our organizations forward. So maybe you could sort of talk to me about your discovery process, or how you might help lead a team through making maybe some big shifts in how we deliver rewards, both financial and non.
Yeah, thank you. It's a beautiful question. It's relatively easy for me to address because I'm in the middle of it right now with a variety of companies. And I would just say, first of all, what's traditional incentive tied to results, because we can reach people, we can have meetings, they don't exist right now. And if you're a leader who's going to continue to pound expectations and not lean back and ask, all right, what are our new agreements? And what I would recommend, that if you're taking notes, write the word down. It starts with a V. It's called value. Incentivize the people to understand their value today, tomorrow, next month, and so on and so forth. Because those are the people that need to be or want to be led, because they're the most valuable people in your organization. You don't furlough the people that are the most valuable. So if you understand as a leader that you're looking for more value in unique ways today than you ever have, challenge your team. Don't tell them, but challenge them to get creative about how can we create more value. Mm-hmm. And P&L or profit and loss statement may not be familiar to everybody, but in a unique, I own my region, I own my territory, I own my customers. Okay, Steve, Sally, put together a P&L for your position and communicate the value that you can sustain during this time. Well, he or she's going to need resources from you, leader. I recognize that. But I would have this very simple response. It comes down to value. And it's hard to do that with your kids, but you're not going to furlough your kids. Some of you may want to at times, but I have a soon to be 8. I have a soon to be 9 and just turned 11, and they help me, Kristen, with this kind of passion about showing up real. And I tell you, I wouldn't ask this audience to ask their kids, how can I be a better dad or a better mom today, if I didn't do it myself. And I'm telling you that those are the most fun conversations I have, because it's amazing what they will tell you. So without going into it, have fun, lead like you've never led before, and use this a lot more right now. Listen, ask questions, be curious. You'll find out a lot of information to help you, not only in the tough times, but when we come out of this. And as Eric started, we are going to get out of this. And when we are you going to be a better leader? Let's find out.
I hope so. Thank you. I know we're a little over our time here, Eric, so maybe you can wrangle us.
We are. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I see a few people dropping off. So for those that are still with us, thank you so much for your time here. We know that you got families and dinner and the like, but hopefully you were able to glean some information out of this. We will use another 15 minutes until 6:35 Mountain Standard Time, 5:35 Pacific, to answer any questions. If you have something that we haven't covered or you want some more clarity around, please use the chat feature to be able to type in your questions, and we'll see if there's some common threads or if there's something that strikes a chord with us, so we can facilitate that. In the meantime, if you would like to be able to connect with us offline as well, you have our information here to be able to reach out and be able to connect with us by email, set something up. We're here at your service to be able to provide some value and insight through this. We're all in it together, so please feel free to post your comments in here, and we can start addressing some of those with the remaining time that we have for about another 15 minutes.
Hey, Eric, I wanted to bring up something that might be fairly obvious, but leading by example is probably the quality or the attribute that I hear most when I ask the question, what do you look for in a great leader? And I just want to acknowledge you, because what we're providing here is an example of what I would recommend others consider doing. Put together 2 or 3 goofballs and share, serve, lead, guide other people. And so congrats for you to have the courage to do this without any practice. As you got us all together and asked us to speak our heart. And Kristen, you've done a nice job moderating, but I would say this is a great example of what I would ask leaders to put together. Find some subject matter experts, have a good conversation, and have the recording available. But thank you, Eric.
I appreciate it. I think time is now to collaborate. We might have different brands and different locations, but we're going to get through this together. So any way that we can collaborate, provide value, I would love to do this, in another few weeks if people are receptive to it. Bring on potentially someone in sales and events to entertain that conversation about groups and how to bounce back there. If people have other topics or subjects that are near and dear to them, they would like us to find some experts around, more than happy to hear where that is. What are those areas and subjects that you want some information? And we can gather some great leaders there as well.
I just want to chime in there as well to dovetail on what Greg's topic was. One of the things that I check on when I'm communicating with somebody, how am I feeling as I'm interacting with this person? And then also, to Greg's point, how do I show up to that person? Am I speaking to them in a way that they can have it, if that makes sense? And am I getting through in terms that they understand? And more importantly is what's the emotional connection that I'm making during that interaction? Is it appropriate for the context?
Trevor, I'm interested to ask you about maybe something a little less sexy.
Right, crystal ball?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know just from working with you before that you actually have a pretty good structure in place of sort of weekly meetings, right? Where you're sort of hearing feedback and you let your group sort of talk together so that you have this amazing ability to understand, like, well, what is the sentiment, or what's going on out there that my team is having, you know, issues with. So maybe can you talk about that structure that you use to facilitate those kind of discussions?
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. Sure. So yeah, we do on a weekly basis, we get together and look at our navel. And say, what's
awesome.
what's going on internally? What do we need to do to be adding more value? And that's exactly the term that we use in our engagement with our clients. We also check in on ourselves personally. How are we doing personally? What's happening within our families, our home environment? Everyone that is in our firm is in a home-based environment. We also then do two other things. We invite presenters and experts in different topics to address our team. So our team are getting educated every week. And then in addition to that, we also are talking about challenges that maybe we are having with a particular client, or clients having a challenge, and how can we help these clients with our collective brain power. So that's sort of our weekly touch base. But in addition to that, we also have one-on-ones with each of our associates each week as well. And that is really a time for them to be vulnerable, to say, hey, listen, I'm lost, I need help with this, or I'm thinking about this, and I'm struggling with maybe the answer. And so we have some one-on-one coaching opportunities during that time as well. So we have a couple of management layers, but we're a very flat organizational structure, and that's by design, and we are small enough that we can do that.
Hey, Trevor, I didn't want to, again, from my point of view, what I heard is check-in. First of all, you want to hear from the human being, the man and the woman. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How are things going? And let them talk about whatever, the fishing trip, the kids, the whatever. I also love that you're inviting others to educate your team because you care about their growth. You learn, you share, you grow. It's a great model. And then the one-on-ones is something I profess everybody consider, because it's not the review process. It's the communication and the relationship process that builds on a weekly basis, and it's brilliant. And if people take that away from this whole conversation, they will be a better leader and they'll be a better follower. So it's great to hear the things you're doing.
Thank you. One more thing I will tell you, if I could, and that is, if a company has to talk about culture, then they probably don't have one. And so what we do is we just live it, and our culture is a collective thing. It's certainly promoted from where I sit, but it really happens amongst our associates, and we have a lot of programs in place that support that.
We got a question on the other side of the coin, and for those that don't have the luxury of being able to have a large team, or have had to be able to let go some people and they're the lone soldier at their property, how can they come about overcoming survivor's guilt and keep the team that's not working feeling confident that they're still going to be okay if they're on furlough or temporarily leave? So many companies are handling this differently, and people are getting caught up in this panic. For those that are staying on board, what are strategies that they can utilize to cope with this survivor's guilt complex in this time and still engage everyone? From Lisa.
Such a good question. And I'm totally hearing this. That's such a good question. Thank you, Lisa.
Well, I would ask, or I would add, Eric, as one point is, this is a great time to reach out to your not your social network, but your professional network, like-minded, like-hearted individuals, and literally, how are you coping? And before you know it, you're going to be listening to them, offering just 2 ears, not an answer. But I would reach out to those that are in similar, and just brainstorm, and then have ownership conversation, not victim conversation. If you're going to love and coach and serve and guide somebody, be an owner so they can become an owner. And I know I'm not saying that they're poor, woe me, but I'm saying if you're listening to a victim be a victim, be courageous enough to reach down and demonstrate what ownership is. And I would offer anybody that's having these questions, there's my contact information. Send me an email. I'll call you right back. I'd love to have that conversation with you.
Such a good question.
Trevor, more of a question for you. In addition to the advice you have already given, being in the boutique hotel industry, where group and corporate travel isn't our top revenue generator, how can we facilitate the increased revenue from the leisure traveler who is due to resume his or her business last in line?
Yeah, great, excellent. So what I was referring to there is, I think if you're a leisure-oriented property, so you're likely to have some resort amenities, or you're likely to be in a suburb of a city or maybe even a rural area, your recovery will be leisure first. So that's the good news for you. If you're already leisure-oriented, then you're going to see that market segment come back first, versus maybe small meetings and other things that maybe an urban property is going to experience first. So I think coming back to what we had said earlier, what Eric had outlined in terms of engagement through the dreaming phase right now, and being in touch with some of your past guests in a way that is meaningful for them, perhaps not in a sales-oriented way, but in a communication and engagement way, will keep you top of mind. And then secondly is understand the type of leisure traveler that is the most profitable one for you. What's the one that spends in your outlets? What's the one that golfs? What's the type of traveler that traveler profile that's going to not only provide the revenue base that you're looking for, but also book through a more profitable channel? And then think through how to best communicate and target those guests first, because that's going to get you back on your feet faster.
I'll echo what you mentioned earlier, and I loved that you said don't just slash prices. Look at where you can add some great value on top of this, beyond incentives and fourth and fifth night free and the like. What activities can you have? What about spa? What about food and beverage, whether it's a dinner or a bottle of tequila? What are additional ways to enhance the experience, and really think through that's what these people are going to be hungry for, and how can we go over the top with experience? From a marketing perspective, other ways to be able to attract that, I believe, that could be really fun are ways to be able to get larger groups, whether it's bringing your friend, and incentives for multiple rooms. I think a lot of people right now are having conversations about, hey, who wants to go? And what about when this is all done? Well, people are probably going to be traveling in larger groups than they otherwise would have, kind of with their partner and spouses. So my encouragement would be, look at what could be some interesting ways that you could get not big group travel, but friends and family and colleagues and the like to be able to travel together following this.
Eric, I'm going to say that there's another audience other than larger groups, which I completely agree there'll be an opportunity there. I think there's going to be an opportunity for solo travel. How do I get into a resort environment out of my house or apartment or wherever my residence is away from my spouse and have some me time in a fun environment, and maybe at spa services or recreational services, etc. So think that through as well. I think would be helpful.
Just for this is great, you know, brainstorming, I think, for everybody. And Masha, I think your question is fantastic. She's actually in West Hollywood, so she's not in a resort destination, in a limited service, you know, type property that's independent, fairly new to open. So you guys probably all saw my notes, whoever is, you know, on the call. I think, you know, there's a lot of corporate business in her backyard, you know, and then sort of being able to find that customer and be able to pivot as quickly as possible is probably what I would say. That business will be traveling. There is business traveler coming. She's not in a big enough property for, you know, large groups, you know, to say, but it's a matter of what business can you buy, you know, to, you know, at this point, I think that's, at least, you know, that business exists right now. You're not, or it will be shortly, you know, and certainly entertainment, I think, is going to be one of the first, you know, that comes back. And that's a great thing for you, you know, Masha, because you do have extended resources and expertise, you know, in that market segment, you know, specifically. So, you know, there's some light at the end of the tunnel there for you.
I would say shopping as well, if you want to look at leisure in that market. Put shopping packages together, put transportation together, make it easy, and go after that. People are going to be wanting to get out of their house and become consumers again.
Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us, those that have stuck with us. Great feedback thus far from those that have commented here. We will look at how do we make this a rolling series through these times to provide support and value to the industry. If you have other ideas you would like for the coming weeks, something that you want to entertain a conversation around, feel free to email me at eric@socapads.com. And you can request this Zoom to be able to share with the rest of your team by emailing info@socapads.com and be able to look back at this and get some other nuggets out of this to be able to apply to your own organization. But want to be respectful. Everyone has dinner and other things to be doing. So thank you for those that have stuck with us, and we appreciate you. Let us know how we can be able to be of service.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.